Good evening and welcome very, very much to Conversations, where I'm really very, very pleased to welcome to the program Richard or Dick Mendelson. And Mr. Mendelson's President and Chief Operating Officer with Katz Communication. And Dick, welcome very, very much to Conversations indeed.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I wonder if you might share. We want to talk about Katz Communication as a unique entity in terms of the American communications industry and the economy, and the fact that it is an ESOP or employee-owned corporation, which is very unique. But I wonder if maybe you could, at the outset, share with myself and the cable audience the history of Katz Communications or the Katz Agency. It goes way back. Maybe we could talk a little bit about Katz, and then we'll talk about how it's gone into this unique ownership pattern a little bit down the line. But share a little of the historical development of the company for us, if you would.
Sure. The Katz is a family name, and the first Katz was an associate of William Randolph Hearst in San Francisco. E. Katz was his name, and he was a city editor and associate business manager, I believe, of the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
There came a time when he had an idea of leaving the newspaper but still maintaining a relationship as its agent. And his idea was to solicit advertising for the newspaper outside of the city of San Francisco.
Unique idea. Huh?
It was the first time, I believe, and in fact, I think the blood was not great between Hearst and Katz, and perhaps they were happy to see him go, but he came to New York and established the E. Katz Special Advertising Agency.
Now, that would have been way back, right?
That would be in the 1880s.
Yes,
And he was an agent not only for the newspaper, but also for the advertisers.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I believe it's possible that our company is traces itself back to the first advertising agency.
The very first. Huh?
The very first one. Mr. Katz solicited the advertising. He had artists who would draw the copy and write the copy, draw the pictures, and collect the money for the advertising and submit to William Randolph Hearst back in San Francisco two things: the advertisement itself, ready for insertion in the newspaper, as well as a check which Hearst could deposit in his bank.
That must have been a nice arrangement from Mr. Hertz's, from his position. That would have been a very, very good service. It would have been available to him, a unique one. Yeah?
Yes, it was relatively automatic with almost nothing for him to do. And I think it was not too long before Mr. Katz realized that he could represent newspapers in cities other than San Francisco because they didn't compete. And his same sales force and advertising force and artistic force could be used to advertise and bring advertisements to newspapers in many different cities. And so a relationship was developed with newspapers in Oklahoma City and in Chicago and in New York. And by the way, we still do represent as an offshoot and a final tracing of relationships, the New York Times and several other newspaper companies, Fisher Broadcasting in the Northwest and several other newspaper-oriented companies. But initially, it was the newspaper business that brought the early Katz Agency into this advertising field. Well, then, this first Katz had a son, and his son entered the business. And at that time, of the second Katz, the son of the founder, coming into the business, the talking box, or radio, was an experimental vehicle, which was very interesting to the newspapers. And the newspapers were the first, I believe, to see the advertising value of radio. And the young son experimented with the sale of radio time for these new radio stations throughout the United States for advertising purposes.
On the same pattern that they'd had for the newspaper.
That's right. And so the company became an early radio representation firm. Later, prior to that, on the newspaper side, advertising agencies came into being, and the representation of the advertiser was dropped by the newspaper firm, and they were solely media representatives. And so by the time radio came, and we were in the second generation of Katz's, The company was no longer a typical advertising agency, but instead called upon advertising agencies as the customers. The clients were the newspapers and the radio stations, and the customers, those who would spend the money for advertising time for their clients, were the advertising agencies. Well, then time went by.
Right. Another generation,
right? And Eugene Katz came into the business, founded by his grandfather and operated by his father. And he and his dad, for quite a while, ran the now famous Katz Agency. And Eugene Katz was most interested in another talking box, this one with pictures.
Yeah.
And when television began, it was really the radio stations who were the first to experiment with television. The company had a relationship with radio stations, and we, under Gene Katz in those years, formed one of the earliest television representative firms. And so now the company was a rather broad-based media representative firm in the 50s and 60s, 70s, representing newspaper and radio and television.
And they still, and they are media representation, and they've continued that. No, they've divested themselves of the interest in the newspaper now.
Yes, I believe approximately around the time of the late 60s or early 70s. I think it was in the late 60s that the newspaper business began to change its nature. It was less a national sale than a local sale.
All right.
And so as things changed a bit, there was a de-emphasis upon a newspaper representation. And Gene Katz sought an answer to this reduction in size of the company in response to certain suggestions. He literally gave the newspaper representation company to the employees who were actively involved in that work.
That was in terms of where you've moved since then. The agency has, or the company has, that was foresighted on his part, and it also was foresighted on his part that he seemed to be of a personality and of a nature that he was genuinely interested in the welfare, or as it were, or the involvement of the employees of an entity that he was involved with, and it was a precursor to a larger scale move that the Katz Agency was destined to move in terms of.
Yeah, that's well stated. He basically saw the impact and the value of the employees' efforts and recognized that beyond anyone else's ability. And later on, when his two sons, this is Gene Katz's sons, the great-grandsons of the founder, when they spent some time working at the Katz Agency, which it was called at that time, they found that it was not to their liking. And now we had a Katz who did not have a successor anxious and willing to take command of this company. And I would say this would be in the very early months of 1970 or 71. And I think Gene Katz had either read an article in the Wall Street Journal. There are a couple of stories. I have to ask Gene himself, but either read an article in the Wall Street Journal or had an introduction to Louis Kelso, who was a lawyer economist who had some marvelous ideas, very revolutionary ideas on employee ownership. And after several meetings and much involvement with accountants and attorneys, Gene decided to transport this company into a new era and a new mode of corporate structure by creating at Katz an ESOP, or an employee stock ownership plan, by converting the profit-sharing plan into an ESOP. And so, in effect, Gene sold his interest in the company to the employees by virtue of creating a trust for their benefit. And this was accomplished in 1971 and 1972. And the Internal Revenue Service application was the 8th one made by an ESOP company. So Katz, at the present time, boasts of being the 8th ESOP in the United States, qualified by the Internal Revenue Service.
And with the counsel of Louis Kelso, who was the father of ESOP, there's a great number of financial arrangements and corporate arrangements that are ESOPs now, but as a Kelso arrangement, so they were making this arrangement with the grandfather of the ESOP, and it was one of the very early pioneer companies that went ESOP, as it were. This was way back at the very beginning when this was just beginning to take hold in the economy.
Yes, ESOP even today is not very widely known. There are 5,000 or so companies that enjoy an ESOP structure, and all ESOPs are not the same. But Katz is fully employee-owned, and we've made certain adjustments to the typical ESOP structure that we find seems to work here. And I think you'll find, if you meet some of the people at Katz, either in New York or at any of our 22 locations throughout the country, there are now 1,100 owners of this company, all available to share with you their feeling of what this ESOP means to them. It's been marvelous for us. It's tremendous motivation. It's tremendously rewarding. And basically, we have a company where all of the effort is available for each one of us, and all of the rewards are also available for each one of us. And it seems to work out very well. We have very little turnover. We have employees who look forward to ending their careers in very good financial condition.
Yeah, right. Because they're growing with the company that they have a piece of the action of, and they feel a sense of involvement. And we have, I might just say parenthetically here, we have talked with some of the people here before we began this interview with you, and without exception, we found that to be the attitude of the part of the people, that they're very much involved with the activity of the company, very much involved in the spree, or the spirit of involvement in this is very evident, and it's reflected in the success of the company. The company. And you came aboard in 1975. 75, and it was reflected in the, I should think, since it is a service-oriented agency, a service-oriented business, and that the spirit of the people who make up the business really does account for a great deal of its efficiency and ability to function well. And the company's done very, very well for itself in these in the 10-odd years since it's gone ESOP, hasn't it? It's doing very well?
Yes, it has, and I think in response to the employees owning the company and having a voice in what its future is and where it is to go, when the company was the Katz Agency and represented radio and television stations as its sole business several years ago, at a meeting, voices were raised expressing an ambition and a desire to become not only a representative firm, but to diversify into broadcast ownership. Those in top management were in a position to hear that sound, and so we changed from the Katz Agency into Katz Communications when we acquired Katz Broadcasting, which is about 300 of the 1,100 people at Katz work at the broadcasting company, which owns and operates 9 radio stations throughout the United States, in Worcester and in Massachusetts and in Syracuse, New York.
Up in Connecticut?
And in Connecticut, where the main office is, in Bridgeport, in Birmingham, in Tulsa, and in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
So we have now brought the ESOP structure comfortably and successfully outside of the representation business and into the broadcasting business. And the third response to requests within the company of a desire to diversify, not only in the representation of broadcast properties, radio and television, and in the ownership of radio stations, but in the supply of software. We formed 2 years ago Katz Sports, which is probably the only wing of our company that has reached the public eye from time to time as we produce and syndicate sporting shows, college basketball and football, and several syndicated shows throughout the United States. So that is the third section of the company, and it too is under the ESOP structure, and it all works well together. So we're looking for another year of excitement in 1984. Some new things are pending, and whatever else joins Katz will join only under one set of circumstances, and that is the participation in the ESOP.
Yeah, the participation in the ownership of the entity by the people who make it up, and it's very obvious that that's the case here. And it's the management and right down to the secretary and people who work in the mailroom and the whole of the people who make up the Katz family, as it were, the Katz business. It has an ownership and a piece of the action, and that is something that is a really important motivating factor in making Katz, if I may say so, one of the most sought-after companies in terms of people who were looking to find a position in the overall industry. Katz is a very attractive one that people would like to join because its reputation is growing every year as an efficient, leading company in the overall business.
Yes, that's true. Not only a good place to work, but a very desirable place in which to obtain something more than just employment. Here you're a piece of the action. You are the action. You own it, and it's yours. And it's more than just a career. You're literally in business when you're a member of Katz Communications. But we have an interesting method that we use at Katz to take this ownership and make it available to all of our people. 60% of the company, of the stock of the company, is owned by a trust, and that trust is held for the benefit of all employees. So 60% of the stock of the company is held in the ESOP trust. The remaining 40% is separated and distributed among 200 or so top executives within the company. So everybody has a share in the 60% of the company. And in addition to that, those who are moving forward and taking on greater responsibility within the company have the ability to purchase the remaining 40% of the stock of the company.
It's an added bonus, as it were, or an added incentive.
It's an added incentive, and it puts your feet deeper into the deal. It also gives you more potential for reward as time goes by. The shares of stock are held only by current active employees of the company. No former employee owns any stock in Katz.
Much less anyone in the normal stock-owning elements of our society as absentee owners, as it were, in a certain sense.
Yes, we have no absentee owners. When you leave Katz, the ESOP is automatically cashed out, and your interest is paid to you in cash. Likewise, the non-ESOP stock must be sold upon departure from the company, and in turn is reoffered to those who make progress within the company and reach the point of responsibility where they join in the 40% non-ESOP shares. So no former employee is an owner, and no one but Katz employees can own the shares. And the moment you become employed by Katz, you become an owner. And as time goes by, your ownership increases, as does the vesting schedule, which gives you an entitlement to those shares upon departure.
It is there's a period of time before the actual vesting takes place. I think a period of trial or getting to know one another 3 or 4 years, something, and after that period of time, then they're vested, as I understand, and that would seem to make sense. There's a time to get to know one another.
Yes, if we have a temporary employee or someone who doesn't work out, the chances are within the first 4 years that will take place, and unless you're with the company 4 years and a day, there's no vesting, but then upon that anniversary date, you become 50% vested in your account. By the way, all through the period of time, there are deposits made by the company, and that money is yours, providing you do stay.
Okay.
Or if, God forbid, you're injured or you die, it turns into an insurance policy. It's automatically vested. But then, assuming that you're here for 4 years and a day, you become 50% vested, and then 10% per year, each year thereafter. So in 9 years, you'd be fully vested. It's interesting, but as of this date, I am not fully vested in my account because I came to the company in 1975, and it will only be in May or April of this year that I become fully vested. But I don't really think it's going to make much difference. I'm not leaving.
Difference because you're not leaving, nor are, as most anybody here that we've been able to talk to, interested in leaving because it seems to be such a very, very good deal, not only in dollar and cents terms, but also in the sense of spree, as it were, or true involvement in the company of people who are something other than just employees or wage earners. They really do have a different spirit here that is involved in the company.
Oh, yes.
And it must be a very, very nice and rewarding place to live where that kind of spirit permeates the relationship between the people who make up the company. It's a family feeling, if that's an overworked term, but almost that sense. Huh?
Well, let's look at it perhaps as a gigantic partnership. Even though we enjoy a corporate structure, the essence of what we have, since it's shared by everyone doing the work, is really a partnership. In addition to that, the interesting observation of the growth from year to year puts you in touch as a Katz employee with something that's not only successful, but is almost, it's beyond exciting.
Yeah.
When each year you become wealthier and wealthier because you own a piece of a successful company. The total effort of the company, every element of it, is returned to the employees. There is not a single outside interest that benefits as a result of the efforts. So Katz in its structure is unique in that it turns effort into equity.
Yeah.
It does it well.
Yeah, and that does very well in dollar and cents terms, and the fact that you have this spirit among the people that make up the company helps put you in a very, very competitive position relative to others within the industry, so that you're able to maintain and have this very, very effective growth record in terms of your overall efficiency be characteristic of the company under this ESOP arrangement. It's given great advantages to the overall structuring of the company.
Well, I wouldn't want to give ESOP the credit for the great work done by the people at Katz. And perhaps they're so good that they deserve this kind of a structure. But there is some kind of a synergy involved. There is some kind of a cooperation between the great structure and phenomenal people who do such super work. And I think as a result of the stability of the sales force and the management, and the difficulty of getting a job at Katz, because there isn't the great turnover, and the need to be so good, there's a stimulus from outside and inside in making everything better and better and better. It's not an easy place to work. This is not a social club.
No.
And if you don't cut it, you're soon out and looking for a place to invest your former ESOP dollars.
Well, you got 1,100 other fellow employees whose interests are related to your performing well, so they can monitor one another. Is a very real sense. There's no slogging off against the bosses or something because you're the boss.
That's right. We don't have really any bosses.
I
think as you walk around Katz in New York, you can see how there's hardly any concern with who is around to observe or to communicate. It's not. Here comes the boss. Let's see if we can get things in order.
Right, yeah.
No, it's their business.
It allows them to be interdirected and involved on their own terms. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I feel more of a fiduciary than a leader. And I feel more involved and concerned on behalf of the company and the employees than I do on behalf of some strange image that we're trying to create. The company does not compete as Katz Communications in any marketplace. In a corporate sense, we're not publicly held, so we don't have to support stock on any exchange, and we don't. Individually, each division, each segment of the company has its own image, its own leadership, and each is the very best in the field. And we're very proud of each and every segment, and each stimulates the other. Katz Radio, Katz Television and its three divisions, Katz Continental, Katz Independent, and Katz American Television. The three of those. We have Katz Broadcasting with its stations. All feel part of the totality in Katz Sports, so that the ESOP holds them all together and kind of rewards them in a similar fashion, but each considers Katz Communications the catch-all and the structure that enables them each to enjoy this kind of a corporate environment, and it's worked out very well.
In terms of agencies that those representative media representatives, so forth, Katz is a leader, I think, probably in terms of our national structure and so forth. Now, I wonder, and that's interesting and rewarding in and of itself from your perspective, but I wonder if ever you or the people here think of yourselves also in terms of being a leader not only in terms of the television or communications industry, but a leader in terms of the broader industrial corporate structuring of the American society, in the fact that you may very well represent a leading-edge representation of corporate structure that's going to become increasingly characteristic of the American economy, so that you have a leadership role outside of the immediate media industry. You have one that's going to apply to broader and broader aspects of the American economy as ESOP techniques become ever more popular within the structure of American industry or the economy as a whole.
Well, I think that is the case. I think we are at the leading edge of American industry in the sense that our structure works, and it's rewarding, it is motivating, it's different, and as a result of our commitment to ESOP, I know I spend a good deal of time with the ESOP Association of America, of which I'm the secretary and member of the executive committee, and I am concerned that there are not enough companies that are aware of just what can be done when the employees own the company. But I'm also understanding that of the fact that it's very difficult to establish a structure such as this. An ESOP company will not work if it isn't of the size of at least 100 or so employees. And most American industry that reaches that size is perhaps owned by a family or an individual. And I'm not going to venture a guess on how you might change that structure from one owned by an individual where all the equity is in one hand and into one where the equity is shifted to the employees. There have been many attempts at ESOP structure, and a company is an ESOP if any stock is held for the benefit of employees. So if you have 10 or 15% of the company's stock owned for the benefit of employees by a trust, I guess you'd have an ESOP. At Katz, this is a fully employee-owned company. All the stock is owned by the employees.
That might represent the far-sighted nature of Mr. Eugene Katz himself, who was rather involved with other things and was very willing and interested in the health of the company, as it were, and had a certain kind of vision of that beyond his own immediate. Well, I don't know, use the word greed, but I mean he's a far-sighted and broad-thinking man, and he was able to go along with this. And partly it was a tribute to the fact that he was so far-sighted in the fact of and less narrowly concerned in terms of greedy profit-taking that altogether too many people may be inclined toward.
Yes, I agree. I think he made his first gesture when the newspaper company was turned over to the employees.
Yes.
And so I think he was extremely sensitive and appreciative of the fact that in the service business it's the people on the line at every point who do the work. We operate Katz exactly the way that sentence sounds. The people who do the work at every area and every element of the company truly create the company and are the company. And it works well here. People in the mailroom, sales assistants, all the way up to the chairman, all are employees and work and put out an effort every day. True, the responsibilities are different, but there's no one who comes to work at Katz who, if he can exhibit the abilities, can't just run right up the ladder and take over.
Okay, yeah, right. And the benefits accruing to that are reflected in the bottom line considerations that you've been so very, very successful and project on into the future, being ever more so. There's no reason why not to do that. I, for one, would certainly like to congratulate everyone here at Katz, and certainly Mr. Eugene Katz and the people who were involved in setting this up as a pioneering effort. And it does seem to me, from my perspective, that you do have that leadership pioneering role. I congratulate you on that, and certainly wish you all the very, very best as you move on into this telecommunications and ESOP-oriented national economic pattern that you've had so much a hand in helping to create. You know, I really do wish you the very best. Sorry, we're running right out of time for this particular segment of the interview, but we want to go around and talk to some of the other people here at Katz and help share some of their perceptions with them, some of the other owners here at Katz that are also their employees, so we're going to have to break this off right now. But may I just say thank you really very, very much for participating in the segment. And
thank you, Harold. I enjoyed it. Really.
Not at all. It has been a great pleasure. And I remind you, it's been a pleasure for you to have the perceptions of Richard or Dick Mendelson, who is President and Chief Operating Officer of Katz Communication, early pioneer in the development of an employee ownership pattern for the company, and happily being able to reflect that ownership pattern has very significantly contributed to the very large success that they're currently enjoying. Yeah? All the best to you. We'll be coming right back with more with some of the people here at Katz momentarily, but that's it for this segment. We're coming right back, and Dick, once again, thank you very much indeed for everything.
Thank you, Harold.
Michael Hugger. And Mr. Hugger is Vice President and General Sales Manager with American Television, located here in New York. And Michael, welcome very, very much to the conversation.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
American Television branch of Katz has to do with the top 50 television stations and so forth. Maybe share a little bit of
Sure. We represent currently 29 television stations that are affiliates of the networks. Located predominantly in the top 50 markets, say markets 1 to 50.
Yeah, you're differentiated off from Continental, which deals with the others.
Yes, right? Continental is also involved in affiliate stations also, but they are in the medium to smaller size markets. And then, of course, our third television division is the independent division, and that's somewhat self-explanatory. Those are independent stations. They are not affiliated with any of the networks.
That's probably a wise strategy to divide that up, because the strategy and approach is a little bit different.
Absolutely, and we don't feel comfortable with asking our salespeople to compromise themselves in the way they have to sell each separate station, because you're very perceptive in saying that there are different ways of attacking your sales in each different division, and we feel that by separating them, we allow our salespeople to concentrate on what they have to do to sell the time that is the most efficient way for those markets.
Going to do a job, might as well do it right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're able to take advantage of Probe. Is that part of the Katz thing? And it has to do with a computer database of information and can provide information to you and to the client. Maybe you could share a little how that fits in.
Sure. Right now, a lot of advertisers will come in and say that they want to reach a specific audience, and you can get out of a rating book what that audience is, but they will break that audience down and say that it's even more finite. It's not 25 to 54 adults, but it's 25 to 54 adults who have a certain lifestyle and a certain income earning. Through our Probe and different services, we can go into the diaries and find out exactly where that audience lives and what shows they are watching. And that way we can go in and show the advertiser that even though in a rating book it may show that this show is the best one to do it, that it might be another show based on the viewing habits of the true audience that they want to reach, which is those people that will hopefully buy their product.
Yeah, right. And so you can help target it in a certain sense. So you can make, again, the effectiveness of the communication is what's the bottom line in all these considerations. And that probe or that marketing information is an important part of the Katz overall organization that you, among others within the Katz, can draw upon to your own advantage.
Yes, it's one of the beauties of working for a Katz in that it gives us all of the tools that we need to go out and effectively sell in today's extremely competitive marketplace. With the advent of cable television and all of the other broadcast services that we are competing with every single day.
Like this program.
Like this program, exactly. We need to arm our salespeople with the most up-to-date tools to compete against all of the new media.
Well, let's us be a lot competitive. Yeah, right. I understand. Right. But in any case, it does. And there's also another advantage you have here at Katz Communication, and that being that you got a piece of the action, and that really does make a difference.
Oh, it sure does. There are a lot of other reps in the business, and there are some extremely good competitors. But we feel, number one, not only are we the best rep, but the other nice part about that is ESOP, which is owning a piece of the rock.
It might help make you the best rep.
Absolutely. I think it attracts, number one, it attracts the best people in the business. Number two, it keeps the best people in the business. They stay here when they come on board because they know that for however long they decide that they want to stay with this company, as long as they stay within the rules of ESOP, and that's 4 years in a day to become 50% vested, and then 9 years in a day you're 100% vested.
Right.
Within that, they know that if they put in their time and do a good job and work hard for this company, that there is a very nice nest egg for them when they decide that they want to get out of the business for whatever reason.
Yeah, it must be a really, and unfortunately, it's an all too unique situation that you're building an equity in the outfit all along as you move along, and unfortunately, there's all too few people who have that sense. And do you think the fact that people in the general economy now, outside of Katz, who don't have that, that might contribute to some senses of alienation and perhaps less work performance because they don't have that sense of participation? It might contribute to some of the problems that the American economy is encouraging.
I'd have to believe that if you worked for a company where you felt that the leaders of the company controlled 95% of the stocks in that company and that they were just filling their pockets and all you were doing was bringing home a paycheck, that your productivity would not be as great if you felt that the leaders of the company were trying to put more money in your pocket by giving you a piece of the rock. And I think that's been the biggest advantage, that we all know that the stocks are not controlled by a few at the top, that it's controlled by all of us, and that we all know that for all of our hard efforts that we will take something out of it when we decide that we want to cash in our chips, as it were.
Yeah, you can get a gold watch, but also, right?
Absolutely.
And that helps contribute to it. So that would mean that you'd have no particular reason, and the track record of Katz is that people like to stay here and people want to come here, and there's a long line of people who want to join this company because Katz is, you use that term, the best.
Absolutely. There are not a lot of people outside of the business who truly understand what ESOP is, but they do know that the people, number one, that the people who come here are very good, and number two, that those people don't leave. And that's somewhat different in this kind of business.
There's a lot of moving around in the telecommunications business.
So they know that there is something at this company, other than what the people make and bring home on their weekly paycheck. They know that there is something else that is keeping those good people here. And as a result, they are very intrigued about that. And when they come to talk to us, either looking for jobs or just to talk over drinks or whatever, they are very intrigued, and they find that they want to become part of this company also.
So they'd have a very hard time luring you away from here.
They sure would.
They'd have to have a really good deal.
They sure would.
A super deal.
It would have good wouldn't cut it. It would have to be a super deal.
Right, because and that is reflected in the fact that people stay.
Absolutely.
And build their careers, and you're in a sense on your own, entrepreneurially almost, developing within the company, and it's a whole different kind of situation. I think Katz might be a good example for a great number of other companies within the industry or the broad economy in general.
I'd have to believe so. I don't know, what other companies it would fit, but I couldn't see why it wouldn't fit a lot of different companies. Our people are very, very pleased with being part of ESOP, and I would tend to think that a lot of it, you said before about the general economy, that other people would want to be able to have a piece of something and not just bring home a paycheck every single day. And I think as a result, we could be a good example for other businesses.
Other businesses within this economy and also for the world. We hear a great deal about the long-term commitment of the Japanese to their corporate structure and so forth. We might have a good example they could learn something from us.
Absolutely.
Maybe they'll learn about ESOP from us.
Absolutely.
They'd really go with that.
Yeah, I would think.
So the international implications could be great too.
I think that they would be there also.
It must be nice to be part of a leading-edge company that's helping to set the pace for the organization or business organizational structuring of the world as you begin to look ahead. Maybe you don't think of it daily like that, but
it's funny.
It must be nice to be in that kind of a position.
It really is.
Real leadership position.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, fine. Listen, it's been a pleasure talking with you, indeed. It's been a pleasure indeed, Mike.
Thank you
very much for participating. And it's been your pleasure to have the perceptions of Michael Hugger, then Vice President, General Sales Manager with Katz American Television, responsible for the major market television, and happy to be able to bring you those perceptions and let him share some of his enthusiasm, real and genuine, with the Katz and with the fact that it is owned by the employees. So you're an employee and an owner of this incredible corporation, and I wish you all the very best as you move into this future you're helping to build.
Thank you.
We'll be back. Thank you very much. That's it for this section. Happy to welcome to the program now Bill Fortenbaugh. And Mr. Fortenbaugh is the Vice President with Katz Radio. And Bill, welcome very, very much to the conversation.
Thank you very much.
I wonder if you might share with us, Katz Radio, you have to do with the radio marketing and so forth, placing of the marketing, and maybe share a little bit of what your work entails and what's involved in that, just briefly, a thumbnail sketch of what's involved with your work.
Okay, the radio division represents lots of radio stations throughout the United States, and essentially what we do is we serve as the out-of-town sales force for these radio stations in a couple of hundred markets around the country. And we solicit time advertising sales at agencies and clients.
That's a traditional thing with Katz. That goes
yes,
way
it is.
Back.
Started off in the newspaper business and then the radio and then the television business.
And then so you have a national purview in terms of the radio marketing of television advertising?
Very much so. Yeah, our whole business is national, and it's directed across the country. So the local effort, we let the stations handle that themselves, and we do the rest.
Do you get advantages, maybe you could talk about some of the advantages of having a good market researcher? They have a ability to understand the markets and be able to give information, that you have the advantages of computer accessing of data and so forth that you can use for yourself and for the client, and I guess that's becoming ever more important.
Yeah. It's the thing that we use actually to separate ourselves from the competition right now is the research that we make available to the agencies. It's research that they themselves really couldn't afford to do on a market-by-market basis. And right now a Katz person can walk into an agency and offer them complete information from psychographic, quantitative and qualitative, and anything they need to know we provide, and we give it to them on an overnight basis. So they get everything they need, and of course what we're looking for is just to get the edge so we can do more business with these people.
Yeah, sure, and then they can be sure that they're placing that or that information is being done in the most effective kind of way.
Absolutely.
And that kind of probe research and so forth really is an advantageous kind of situation, and that's developing.
It is the critical difference. It really is. Aside from the people, because it's a people business, but. Putting two salesmen into an agency, one guy's got to have an advantage if they're both the same caliber person, and that advantage at Katz is research, and it's the ability to know what's going on and fill a buyer and the planner in on it.
Yeah, and you also have another advantage, if I may. You also have the advantage in that the people here at Katz are not only employees of Katz with one of the leading company, station representative and so forth, but it's also you have an ownership. You have an ownership stake in it, and the ESOP really makes a difference in terms of your sense of participation in the company.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could share some of the dimensions of that from your own perspective, if you could. It makes a big difference being an owner of the company rather than just an employee, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Probably the single biggest. I use that phrase. The single biggest difference that way is the team spirit that it builds at the sales level. There's a feeling of participation by everybody because all we are is a bunch of people with rented desks and rented space and rented phones and a rented computer, and it's the people that make the difference, the people that write the programs, it's the people that make the calls, it's the people that solicit the clients.
It's a service business.
And if they don't believe in their company and if they don't feel good about their company, they're not going to perform up to the levels that we need them to perform. And just being an employee isn't enough. And so it works from a couple of different ways. It works for the salesperson that's out making the call. He knows he's realizing that he knows he's making the call for his own profit, number one. And number two, from a managerial standpoint, from a cost control standpoint, you're not saving some invisible stockholder money by booking super saver fares for business travel. You're saving yourself money.
Yeah, right.
It's money you're putting in your own pocket.
Yeah, and that can work both ways amongst yourselves. If you sense a sense of team, I mean, you can help keep the cost down, and you can also help others take advantages of situations and get some synergies between you so that you have a real team spirit. And we've gone around this company, and while it's a cliche to say so, there really is that sense of team spirit, and I think that's probably seen by clients who deal with Katz because Katz is doing very well.
They like it. When we go out to solicit a new client, one of the differences that we can point to between ourselves and the competition is that we own ourselves, and people recognize the value in that right away. They know you've got a stake in every move that you make, and that you're going to perform up to your maximum for them.
Yeah, and you actually make that part of your
It's part of our pitch.
It is, right. And people respond to that
structure,
because it's in the American tradition, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's like owning your own business. It is owning your own business, and the clients, they recognize that.
Yeah, right. And so that helps serves you well. I mean, not only for your own self, but in terms of the representation of the company that you represent. That is reflected in the bottom line consideration. Katz is number one now.
Yes.
And you think it'll just sort of more or less stay that way, as far as you can tell, as you look ahead?
Well, it's not going to. It's maybe not more or less. We're going to have to work at it.
Yeah.
But we are the largest broadcast representative, and we've gotten there by working hard and introducing sales techniques and research techniques and all things that that we know work to make the company bigger, stronger, more profitable. And since we're all very greedy and we want to be more profitable and we want to be bigger, That'll continue to make us
You're all very greedy.
Yes.
Well, no, and in a certain sense, you're also building like you're younger and so forth. You have a long time ahead of you, and it's an exciting company. It's a great future as you look ahead and so forth. But at some point, you might want to take it easy and do a little fishing or something. And when you come to that time, you're going to have a nice nest egg that you're going to be able to live a graceful life for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Based upon.
Yes.
And that's rather a nice thing rather than a gold watch at the end of the line, right?
Absolutely.
So that it make you feel as though the advantages that are accruing to the company, as you say, aren't for some faceless stock-owning group, as you say, it's for yourself.
Right.
You monitor yourself. Well, it's an exciting company, huh?
Yes, it is.
How long have you been with the company?
14 years.
14, right? So you're fully vested now then?
Yes, I am. It's all mine.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, listen, I'm sorry, it's been your pleasure to talk now with one of the many happy Katz employees, and it's cliche but true. They seem to be really involved in it here in a unique way, and they've got a unique ESOP financing, which has been part and parcel of that, and they're going well, and may I just wish you all the best. You move into this future you've helped to build, and it's been your pleasure then to have the perceptions in of Bill Fortenbaugh, who is the Vice President with Katz Radio. Happy to bring you that, and there will be more coming up from Katz momentarily, but that's it for this particular segment. We'll be coming right back, and Bill, once again, thank you very much indeed for everything.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome very, very much to this segment of Conversations, where I'm pleased to welcome to the program Chairman of Katz Communication, that being Jim Greenwald. And Mr. Greenwald, welcome very, very much to the
Thank you, Harold.
conversation.
It's good to be here.
I wonder if you might share. We've talked quite a lot with Dick Mendelson about the history, the unique history of Katz Communication and the Katz family and so forth. Now, you joined Katz back some time ago in terms of the length of service that most of the people have seen here. When did you join Katz?
December of 1955.
Oh, boy, that goes back into a long time. Katz was really a really different organization
Much
at that
different
time.
organization at that time, Harold. That was almost 29 years ago, and our company has grown tenfold since that time, certainly in numbers of employees and a lot of the things that we are doing today.
Go ahead.
But I just was saying, as a different company, because of our ownership, it has prompted and encouraged people to join us and for us to find new, more exciting ventures to do, as well as station representation.
Yeah, Katz is, in a very real sense, a unique organization in terms of this employee ownership that is characteristic of it, certainly, and that has had a hand in helping to build you as the leader now as a station representative in television and information era as we come into it. It gives you a great sense of responsibility. I wonder if those things could have been seen from that perspective of 1956, you say, when you joined the company. Mr. Katz, or Eugene Katz, was a unique and far-sighted gentleman in and of himself, and some of the projections of Katz moving in new and innovative directions might have been foreseen in the personality of Mr. Katz or Eugene Katz.
I think Gene, with his wisdom and his intellect, certainly would have seen growth for Katz, but I don't think in any way he could have imagined how large and successful we are today.
Yeah.
I think that was a vision of another era, and I think what we're doing today is far beyond the scope of anything the Katz family might have thought of when they first went into it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it was Gene's vision and his foresight that got us into employee stock ownership.
Yeah.
And has paved the way for all of us, Dick and all the other people in the company.
Yeah, it might be well to mention that even ESOP as a financing technique and so forth is relatively new in the development of the American economy. It goes back to what, 1972?
72.
That being the dark ages, as it were, just the beginnings of ESOP. And you were the only 8th company in the whole history of the nation, as a sense that went ESOP, so you're a real pioneer.
That we're certainly told we were either 7th or 8th, and I don't know how many companies are ESOP companies today, but I know it's considerably more than that. So I guess in that sense, we were certainly a pioneer.
I guess there's some 6,000 or so that are called ESOPs, financial arrangements, but the ESOP at Katz was also worked out with Louis Kelso, the father of the ESOP, so it was worked out right, as it were, in a certain sense.
Absolutely.
So that the full advantages of that kind of financing could be realized by the man who really understood the implications of it from that side of things.
Well, in fact, Harold, he was the man with the first vision.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that started it all for us.
Yeah, right. And you've been here then through the period of time before it was an ESOP company. It was a growing company, and you went into radio, television, and expanded. But then when the ESOP company was developed, you've seen a dramatic growth from the time that it became ESOP, and you think that that's really had a strong effect in terms of building the very good record that you do have now?
I don't think it would have been possible as a company for us to have grown as quickly as we have and as successfully as we have if we didn't have an ESOP. I think the tremendous and exciting motivation that each and every employee has by being an owner of our company has certainly not only attracted good people to us, but then what is most important, they've elected to stay and grow with the company as we have grown.
And there's a real spree or a sense of, and again, it sounds a little cliche in a certain sense, there's a team spirit or a sense of spree with the company, internal to the organization of the company, that the client who would contact a Katz representative would see, and that helps in the growth of the industry in terms of relating to the outside interests. Or
no, I think that's true. I think our people have that feeling that is expressed to our clients, to our customers, and probably most importantly to ourselves and with ourselves. I think everybody has that marvelous feeling, the esprit de corps that you're talking about, and working together and caring together, because in the long run they're sharing together.
Yeah, right. And it also is they're building their own, if the time should come, and they've got a very exciting time of it, building their career within the company on an individual basis, so that they seem to be able to be very self-directed and a great deal of creative motivation coming from the individuals themselves. You don't have to have a lot of supervisory kinds of wasting of time, as it were, in a certain sense. They just get on with the business. It's very exciting, but when the time comes that they might want to perhaps move on to other things, they would have a nice, secure nest egg, as it were, to live a life of reasonable grace and so forth if they decide to leave the business.
I think there are two things, and you alluded to both of them. Number one, the longevity of the employee. I think the person that comes to work for Katz Communications gets that feeling very quickly, or he or she doesn't get it at all, and then they're gone either voluntarily or involuntarily.
You work that out in the 4 years period, then.
And that's why the 4-year period. We'll know pretty quickly.
That seems to work well, then.
Exceptionally well, I think. And the second thing is the ability of the employee to grow financially with the company, so that at a propitious and proper time in their career, they can elect to retire or do something else without fear of a financial insecurity.
Which is altogether too often the case. They get a gold watch and that's the end of it, and they could do far better than that.
With us, they get the watch and then they buy the watch factory.
All right. That's a really good thing. I wonder, we're coming, I mentioned it, I alluded to, we're moving into now, the society, the whole of the American society and economy is moving rapidly. We're moving into what's being called an information environment, away from an industrial organized society more and more, so that information or the understanding of an information context is increasingly important. Katz is a very real leader in that sense, because you're involved with the broadcast and communication industry in a leading edge sense. You're also a leader in terms of the financial arrangement and the organizational arrangement of your company. What if you can't see that in a very real sense you're setting a pace that is going to become more and more characteristic of the broad organization of American society as the advantages of this kind of organization become more and more evident to greater numbers of people? In that sense, you see yourself in a real leadership position, beyond your leadership position in the industry itself, if you can understand what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, and I think that's what Lou Kelso had in mind. Obviously, he wasn't thinking of Katz specifically or uniquely. He was thinking of, if I may say, a world of Katz-type companies that would foster free enterprise and the ability for everybody, the average person, to have a stake in his own future and where financial impact was created. I really believe that, and as far as we're concerned, we've done it. We've gone out and acquired other companies in the past couple of years, and the companies we've acquired have done well, not only because they were good, not only because we're good in the assimilating, but more importantly that the old company employees become Katz Communication employees, and then they themselves become owners of the whole organization. So they have a double motivation, sense of pride and accomplishment.
And these things that you involve yourself with, other things involve the ESOP organization.
That's
you
true.
want to make sure that it does involve that, to take advantages of those. We've been talking a great deal about the motivation of the employees, as it were, the people, employee owners of the corporations. Good, maybe not to have to make that distinction, but that it's also, as a financing mechanism, has great efficiencies, doesn't it? In terms of giving you capital formation capabilities, it might be a little bit difficult to realize if you didn't have that kind of an arrangement.
I know our president, Dick Mendelson, has talked to you, and I'm sure he's explained that to you in some detail, but it's been a marvelous tool for us. Just think, when we became an ESOP company in 1972, we didn't have more than just really a handful of employees compared to what we have now, and very, very limited resources. And through the benefit of the ESOP and the success of the company through ESOP, we've now been in a very, very favorable buying posture of buying other companies and making them part of us. And so you're right, as a financing tool, it's been sensational.
Yeah, well, it would seem to me, I suppose you would be an advocate then also of the general proposition that this kind of an arrangement is one that, like those who have a national responsibility for the economy or the general citizenry, the more they could become aware of the advantages of this, it seems to be a situation where no one loses in a certain sense. Everyone gains. There are positive synergies all the way around. It's a thing that really ought to be encouraged, and I presume you'd agree with me in that.
I certainly would. With programs such as yourself and the organizations and several congressmen spearheading the continuance and the favorable treatment in terms of understanding of what it's all about, absolutely. It has to be preached more. I think, but I think every employee of our company sells ESOP because it's part of themselves. It's part of what they need and what they mean to themselves.
Yeah, we've talked to people here, and they really do feel that, and it makes it gives an object lesson, as it were, to a great number of other people who are going to be realizing these advantages, and it's allowing you to go into areas that you hadn't traditionally been in. The Katz name is beginning to get in front of the public now with Katz Sports, and so forth.
Right.
So you're branching out into other areas. It must make it a very exciting time to be part of the organization, as it were, having had a longer history with it. It must be very exciting and getting better all the time.
It takes a while to get comfortable with that, Harold. That's a good point. Whether we're appearing in front of the public for the first time, because the kind of industry, basic industry we're in, station representation, is really a very small business and unknown to most of the people. It's a unique field we're in. As we get into other areas of expertise and as we acquire other companies or merge with other companies, we get better known. That takes a little getting used to.
Yeah, it takes a little getting used to, but makes it interesting from your perspective.
Makes it more fun, more challenging, and more rewarding.
Yeah, more fun all the time.
All the time.
Oh, great.
I'll be 32 next Thursday.
Hey, fantastic. Right. Well, I'm telling you, we could go on talking a great deal. And I do want to follow. We, on Conversation, certainly are interested in following Katz because we see it as a leading edge object lesson almost for a great deal of the economy, and wish you all the very, very best as you move into that telecommunications future that you had such a hand in helping to build. And I wish you all the best fortune as you begin to move ahead as an ESOP company. And I can only just say thank you really very, very much for participating in this section. And we're going to see if we can't let people know more and more about Katz. And we wish you all prosperity as you move on into this future that you helped build.
Well, we appreciate your coming and visiting with us, Harold, and being on your show. And we wish you a lot of luck and come visit us very soon.
Okay, fine, I will.
Bye-bye.